Alrighty, that's become a staple on Practice Underwater is starting these with alrighty. So alrighty, welcome back to Practice Underwater. This is an exciting episode, unlike many on the show where we're actually revealing the doctor's name and we're not looking at their practice by numbers. So this is a little bit different. To give you guys a little bit of a backstory, I got called out on Facebook by somebody, I forgot who, and Austin, you had posted about your startup course, and you released a startup course on our Facebook group. And then you guys had said something about hygiene that was contradictory to my feelings about hygiene. And then we got into so you posted something. I think there was a copy and paste from the course on what you said about hygiene. And then I posted like a 15 or 1600 page or 16 page, that'd be insane. 1600 word document with a response to that. And then you posted responses on my document. And to be honest, I haven't read them.
Because, alrighty.
Yeah, alrighty. It's just I saw it. I'm like, you know what? Let's just do this on air. I just at this point can't. It's a lot of Facebook arguing for me. I don't do that very often. So I thought we just do it on air, hash it all out, and let's see. It's good to get different perspectives, and I think it's funny because I like you as a person. From our interactions together, we're friendly. We've talked for a couple of years now, but on an idea basis, you tend to promote a lot of the things that I don't like. And our biases are in opposite directions. And so it's been kind of funny. That's why I'm calling you the anti-George in the episode.
Yeah, I
so
got you.
Go ahead and if somebody doesn't know you, I think most do, but just go ahead and introduce yourself and, maybe your side of that story before we get into it.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say we were arguing. I would say we're having an interesting discussion on.
There's no emotion attached to it. We're just talking.
No.
But, yeah, we definitely have differing opinions.
Yeah. So my name's Austin Davis. I'm sure everyone's seen some of my posts on the Shared Practice Facebook group if you're in the group. But me and my wife, we did a couple startups. George loves startups, and so I like to post some things about our startups and what's going on with them and why I like them. And George sometimes likes some of the ideas, sometimes doesn't like some of the ideas, and we have discussions about them. So yeah.
Oh gosh, I feel like this episode wouldn't be complete if we didn't have that part of the discussion too, which I just am rolling my eyes at the idea of it. But I do quickly want to. So you and your wife both have startups. So
right. Mm-hmm.
I want you to talk about both of them.
Okay.
And I almost want to completely throw out yours from the discussion because it's such an oddball in my mind.
Yeah. But yeah, mine doesn't apply to probably 99% of people out there. So I get that.
Okay. So go ahead and tell us about both of the practices.
Okay. We'll start with Danielle's office. So hers is a typical, GP startup. We started it in 2018 and let's see, what all do we want to know about it?
Yeah. What month?
May of 2018.
Okay, so you're coming up on month 22.
Right. Yep. We're almost at 2 years.
Okay. Let's. I think we'll just kind of as things come up relating to the startup, and then you don't share stuff that you don't want to, obviously. What about your startup?
So my startup opened at the most perfect time possible. It opened 2 months ago. So I was open for seriously like exactly 2 months before I had to shut down because of, all the coronavirus stuff. So luckily I got off to a super fast start and didn't pay myself for anything and didn't spend any money. And so I have, plenty of reserves in the bank, but it could have been, I could be sweating really bad right now.
Oh, for sure. So this is March 25th. So I think it's important to say that because on a day-to-day basis, our entire world changes with this whole coronavirus and politics out of it, but tell me a little bit about what's going on in both practices. What are you guys doing? How are you handling it?
Yeah. So for both of our practices, we shut them down pretty much completely. Let's see, about a week ago today. So today's Wednesday. So yeah, last Wednesday, we shut them down completely. And we have been answering any emergency calls. And, if we did have a real emergency, we would go in. But other than that, we're bringing in zero income, at least Danielle's practice. She does a lot of insurance stuff. And so she's got all her insurance checks coming in. So that's good. But I pretty much have zero income coming in because mine is a denture and implant only practice. and it's mostly people paying their insurance is a small amount of what they do, and so it's mostly just people paying with credit cards and checks, and so I have none of that coming in now.
This
So
is
that's
why
where I'm
Richard is
at.
such a better interviewer than me. I never even asked you what your practice is all about. So go ahead and describe a little bit more about your practice before we keep going.
All right, so my practice is a startup practice, open for 2 months. We only do implants and dentures and extractions. I don't have a hygienist. I never will. I don't even have stuff to do general dentistry in my practice. I only strictly limit my practice to implants, extractions, and dentures. I have a full denture lab in my office, full-time lab tech. Started with me from day one. I have I actually have a non-clinical partner, which is really unusual. And I did a startup with a non-clinical partner who's actually my office manager. I've been working with him for about 3 years previously to this, and we work really, really good together. And I am a horrible integrator. I just constantly like bounce back and forth from idea to idea to idea, and he actually makes ideas happen. So we've been a great team. In the first 2 months open, we collected $250,000
Oh, wow.
from scratch with only dentures, implants, and extractions.
Wow. Good
So it's
for
pretty crazy.
you. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so we're really
Whoa.
excited about that, and that's why I'm not. I mean, I'm just so I didn't know how I was going to start. I didn't know if I could have collected, $40,000. Now I had no idea what kind of
Whoa.
response I was going to get, but that's why I'm not sweating too bad because,
Wow.
yeah,
250K in 2 months on a
in
startup?
2 months on a startup with only. I mean, I've been referring out anything that's not dentures, implants, and extractions too. So I've referred out a ton to Danielle.
Wow. Are you guys' offices close to each other?
Yeah, they're like 2 miles away, same road.
That's awesome. So that's great for her too, because she's probably getting a ton of patients from that.
Oh yeah. I've probably been referring her. I'd say at least 5 or 10 good patients a month for 2 months I've been open.
Wow.
hmm
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Whoa.
yeah,
Good for
pretty
you, man.
great.
Yeah. And so I guess like the part of the discussion, right, with your practice, and you guys have done the startup thing so well, is your practice is such a unrelatable office to the majority of GPs from the standpoint of your clinical skill set. So talk about your clinical skill set a little bit. I think people need to understand that just as much as anything else.
Yeah, so I am a GP. I did a 1 year AAGD, so I did have some extra training. And that year was mostly focused on implants and surgery and extractions and all that stuff. And did a ton of dentures too. So that's where I kind of got my love for dentures. Was in that AAGD because I had to. I mean, do everything besides set the teeth for dentures. So we had to do a lot of lab work. And I actually started to love dentures after that, and I missed them a ton. And so I ended up working for a implant and denture DSO. It was just bought by Affordable. It was called DDS Dentures and Implant Solutions. And so I did a ton of dentures and implants there. I worked there for, I guess, maybe around 2 years or so. And I placed, well over 1,000 implants in 2 years
Wow.
there. Yeah. And so I guess I have a more unique skill set than most. And I also pretty heavily focus my practice on like all on X fixed cases. I do on average about 4 a month for the past, I'd say, couple years. And I've actually continued that trend in my new startup. We've already done 7 arches in the first 2 months.
Wow.
And I'm hoping my goal is to get up to like 8 to 10 arches a month, and that'd be the only procedure I perform. So I'm working on that, and we'll see. We'll see if I can get there. But let's see what else. Oh, and I also just bought a full, made another great decision. Right in the peak of all the coronavirus stuff going on, I bought a full digital lab setup. So I went and doubled down on my startup and got that. And so I'm going to be running that too soon.
Good for you, man.
Yeah,
That's
thank you.
awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, for the majority of our audience, the ability to do solely all on X cases means you have to refer out. I mean, how many of these cases could you not handle?
Like all in 4 case coming into my office, how many could I not handle?
Yeah.
I would say I can handle pretty much everyone, unless
So you're
they're
pretty much a
severely.
specialist skill set.
Yeah, I don't refer much out. I mean, if I refer them out, it means that the specialist is probably going to say, "Yeah, I can't do this one either,"
Yeah.
or there's no one even in my area that does zygomatic implants or anything like that. I've been trying to get the specialists around me to do them, but yeah, pretty much if they need zygomatic implants or they're severely medically compromised, that's the only two that I'm not going to do it on.
And one thing I really admire about you, Austin, is you are very so I'm relentlessly stubborn in doing it my way.
Hmm.
And there are a fair amount of GPs out there that may be able to pull it off clinically, this type of practice. I think about a couple of guys that we've had on Practice Underwater, like, oh yeah, I could do an all on X, no biggie. I've had the residency experience and I do them, and they're clinically adventurous. Like, you have to be a clinically adventurous to head down this road for sure.
Yeah.
Which obviously I'm not. And but you this is like, I think most GPs listening to this, like maybe 1 in 20 is sitting here with that clinical skill set, and they're thinking like, man, like, it's pretty ballsy to just go out there and open that type of practice, exclusively that. And good for you, man. I think I admire the courage and the determination to do it your way. I think that's something that I have, and I recognize it in other people. And so I think if there's anything to take from your startup, it is being prepared and getting the right team in place, doing the right process, and being relentless about doing it the way I want to practice dentistry. There's like 100 ways to do this, and you're choosing to only do extractions, implants, and dentures. Good for you, man.
Yep, what you said is exactly my feelings on it. Is I wanted to do what I want to do, and
Yeah.
I don't want to do anything else. And I'm going to make it to what I want, or I'm going to fail trying. And so, one thing to say about that is I'm really, really, grateful to have Danielle, because we started her practice in 2018, and she's been doing so good there. It gave me the confidence. One, we'd already done one, more traditional startup that was safer. And so I had the confidence of doing just a startup in general. And then also, financially, she was doing really well. And so I didn't have to worry about,
The slow period or something like that.
right. Or,
Yeah.
if we had to float the practice or something. I mean, I wasn't worried financially. And so that really helped, having her to support me through it. So,
Now, I'm just curious, and you don't have to share, but your practice model is so unique that all the overhead numbers get thrown out the window. Like, your rent isn't going to be 8%. It's a small building with very high, but your lab bill might be like much higher than the typical GP lab bill. So what is the overhead of, and you don't have to tell me how much money you make, but I'm just curious of what the overhead of a practice like that is. It kind of similar to a regular practice, just in different categories, different percentages?
it is. So it's really hard to say right now because
They're so unstable.
we're so unstable. We're in
Yeah.
rapid growth mode. We've been spending a lot on marketing, and I spend well over $10,000 a month marketing. Um,
Good.
and we I just don't know where everything's going to settle. But as far as overhead as of now, I mean, in the first 2 months, it's well under 50%.
Can I quickly interrupt you?
Mhm.
So well under 50%.
Right. Yeah.
Cool. Well over 10. So you spent $10,000 a month in marketing since opening, before a single dollar revenue, correct?
Right. Yep.
I want people to hear that,
Yes. That's
because
huge.
that is huge. And it's so, dentists with marketing, I mean, I'm not going to, throw all dentists in this category, but a vast majority of them are, they need to see it work before they invest money, but that's not the way it works. And so you have to be courageous enough to, and I think a startup investing 10 grand a month in marketing, you don't hear about that ever.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think,
And a startup that only does one procedure investing 10 grand a month in marketing, the boldness, success favors the bold. And it, man, I didn't know a lot of this stuff before we started talking. So I'm kind of having this on air. You're like, damn, dude, nice job.
thank you.
I admire the brash, bold behavior in a startup. Like, this is in a lot of ways the way it should be. And I think a lot of failed startups are from a lack of marketing.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's one of the most important points we can make here when talking about any kind of startup, and not even just, really specific startup like I did. I mean, any startup, you have to have the money. I mean, the number one thing you have to plan for, you don't plan for your construction budget, don't plan for your equipment budget. Like your marketing budget has to be number one. And if you open and you blow your whole budget on all the other stuff and don't have money to market, I mean, you're going to be miserable and you're going to struggle for
Yep.
probably years.
I mean, that's literally exactly what happened in that episode that we aired with
Yep.
that doc who was having a really hard time. So let's talk about Danielle's. So what was her marketing budget when she opened? Was it also 10 a month, or did you guys go a little bit more conservative on a GP practice?
It was 5,000 a month. We were more conservative. At that time when we opened Danielle's, I mean, we had $700,000 in student loans between us. We were not near as bold as we are now.
So if you're opening a third startup, GP practice, regular,
Yeah.
what's your marketing budget going to be?
I'd say 5,000.
You like that 5 number?
I do like 5,000, but that has to be 5,000 directly into marketing. You can't include things like Swell or Local Med in your budget. You can't include, paying some website company to host your website. Like that has to be $5,000 directly into external marketing. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And I think that's another big thing is people will include all these other things in their marketing when, that $5,000 minimum needs to be towards ad spend. So yeah.
Correct. Yep. So let's talk about, now okay, do we want to do a startup? I mean, I feel like the startup versus acquisition thing has been so hashed out.
Yeah.
I personally don't want to go down that road. Do you want to go down that road, Austin? We can if you want to.
No, I want to talk about whatever you want to talk about, whatever you think is going to bring out the best content. Let's do that. I'm open.
So I want to talk about the hygiene thing. Because I feel like this is an area where we... So I got screenshotted a part of that red comment thing that you posted, and I like a couple of things that I was screenshotted was like, oh, I just don't feel like we totally. I feel like the point I was trying to make in my post didn't totally come across to you, so I thought maybe let's just start with your feelings about hygiene and how you feel about my feelings about hygiene, and let's just go from there.
Okay, I think that we agree on more things.
I think we agree on more things than we disagree on. I agree with you.
Yeah, definitely.
But go ahead. And
so when I'm talking about hygiene, from what I posted in that thread, it was more talking about hygiene for a startup practice. I don't think it's good to focus on hygiene for a startup practice because of focusing on like getting the hygiene patients in. It's hard to get a bunch of hygiene patients in and get a bunch of loyal 6-month, recall patients in because all those patients already have a dentist. So if you're opening a startup, we market for specific procedures and for emergencies. And just, new patient volume is the biggest thing that we go for. And so when I'm saying hygiene is not important, I don't mean hygiene is not important for a general practice. I mean, hygiene shouldn't be your priority for growing a startup. And I think that might be where
So here's where I think we might disagree. So I think we are both on the same page. New patient flow is for an acquisition, for any practice that wants to grow. It is like the number one most important thing. I think we both agree on that. I think where we might disagree is if I was opening up a startup, I would tell my entire staff, every patient is a hygiene patient. And every patient that comes into our office, it is a priority that we are getting them scheduled in hygiene.
Yeah, I think we definitely disagree there.
Yeah. So that's what I want to talk about.
Okay, yeah. So we schedule. So someone calls and says, "Hey, I want a cleaning. I'm due for my cleaning. I'm a new patient. I want to get a cleaning." They're absolutely going to go in hygiene. And even Danielle actually tried to get Danielle to schedule less in hygiene. She's actually more with you. She tries to get everyone in through hygiene. But she still does a lot of new patients in side columns for assistant time. And so what that does is it allows you to get new patients in immediately. So we like to bring new patients in through an assistant time, get the x-rays, address a chief complaint or, an infection or a tooth that needs to be extracted or a root canal or something like that, as opposed to getting them straight to hygiene. And I think part of that is, where we are. I mean, we're in Tennessee and we're in kind of the outskirts of a city. And so we do get, people from the city, but we also get a lot of people from the kind of surrounding more rural parts of Tennessee. And so I think that's probably a big difference. If you're in a city, you're probably not going to be seeing near as much dental disease as we're seeing in our practice.
So you guys see a ton of decay?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, we
Man,
can't do all the work that needs to be done in our practice.
I'm that's something I didn't super think about.
Mhm.
And it's not like I, love treating decay. I mean, I actually kind of don't, but like I walk into an exam and I see like every once in a while a patient with a bunch of cavities. I'm like, ugh, like this
Yeah.
is this is annoying. But for the most part, my patients, they're healthy. I get patients that are just looking for a dentist to continue to take good care of them. But so here's where I would add a wrinkle to what you guys are doing is I totally agree. Get the patient in as soon as possible, doctor side, even take care of something same day is great. But then that emphasis on getting them in hygiene.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right there. That's something that we probably don't do a great job of, and we could probably exponentially grow Danielle's practice by emphasizing that. So I think you're
That's
absolutely
sort of
right.
what I
Yeah.
was that's where I'm going because right now she has one hygienist. How many new patients has she seen a month?
Oh man, she sees over 100 every month for the past 22 months. And so her hygienist is a super hygienist. She pays her on production,
Mm-hmm.
and she is amazing at connecting with the patients and like just getting that really fast connection. Like she's a really hard worker.
Mm-hmm.
She has assistants obviously helping her with turning over rooms, taking x-rays, all that stuff. And so her hygienist is really a hygienist and a half, easily.
So how many patients does her hygienist see a day?
Oh, I should know that, but I don't know. I mean, I look
Like
at her
a
hygiene
typical
schedule.
hygienist will see 7 to 8. So she's seeing
Uh,
12. Is she seeing 16,
I would
20?
say closer to like 10 to 12 a day.
Okay, 10 to 12 a day. So a
Mhm.
hygienist and a half
Yeah.
seems appropriate. So here's the point that I've been harping on this whole time is 100 new if you get so if let's just say Danielle and I both open startups in a vacuum, right?
Mhm.
And she gets 100 new patients a month and I get 100 new patients a month. By this time, 2 years in, I'm sitting with 3 hygienists.
Right. Yeah. But I think we don't necessarily want three hygienists, especially with one doctor,
No, I would,
because, yeah.
but so are you guys looking to stay one doctor for a long time?
No, she's actually got an associate starting really soon. So should be starting, I guess, probably next week, but I don't think we're going to be open. So it might be a little while later. But
I
as soon
see.
as we open back up, we
She's
have
going
a
to
new
start.
dentist starting. Yeah.
Good.
hmm
Um, but with one hygienist.
With one hygienist, but we're actively looking to hire another hygienist. I mean, she's been looking for a few months to hire another hygienist. Um, I'm guessing there's going to be a lot to hire soon.
So your thoughts on hygiene are strictly startup based, like your first 6 months.
I would say yes and no. I still think that, as a dentist, I don't think, like, me personally, if I was a general dentist, or I am a general dentist, but if I was working in a general dental practice,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't want to check more than one, at most two hygiene or
Mm-hmm.
hygienists, just because my personality is, I really don't like having to do the small talk over and over again, the interruptions. I have a one track mind, and I like to do one thing at one time. And I'd much rather see new patients as opposed to recall hygiene patients. And Danielle still does some of her own hygiene, even if she'll basically overbook hygiene. And sometimes she ends up doing, her own hygiene just with kids a lot of times, and with
Mm-hmm.
faster appointments. And that's just, when you overbook hygiene, sometimes the people actually do all show up. Um, so,
Yeah, that's I think I've heard that too, where you book it kind of like airlines, they overbook flights
right.
expecting some to cancel.
Right.
Yeah, so I've heard of that concept. I've never employed it myself, but so I'm actually the opposite. So the way we run my practice is we want to start the month with 30% of our hygiene capacity totally open.
Oh, okay. I like that.
So that's something that we actively, we have 4 hygienists. So, between adding days, it's never, I never remove hygiene days, but I always add. And so if we need to add days to make that 30% happen, then we do. And so I'm the opposite of overbooking. I underbook hygiene.
Hmm.
And I don't mind my hygienist having openings, but I think a lot of people that drives them nuts.
Yeah, and I get where you're coming from. I've listened to pretty much every podcast y'all put out. So I do, I really do agree with a lot of what you're saying. But it's really easy to switch a low overhead, high new patient flow practice over towards hiring more hygienists, adding capacity,
Mm-hmm.
adding doctors. It's really, really hard to go the other way. So if you have a higher overhead practice with a really large team, it's hard, a large facility. It's hard to pare it down and to go back down to having a lower overhead practice. And so, I think you have more flexibility if you start out with a lower overhead. You have a lot more flexibility of what you can do moving forward. So now, at this point, we are bringing on another dentist. We're looking to add more people. But when we first opened Danielle's practice, like I was saying, we had all those student loans, and we didn't like having all the student loan debt. I think it caused Danielle more than me some anxiety about having it all. And so we really wanted to have a lean practice that we could have a lot of cash flow coming out of the practice. So we could, one, pay student loans off, and two, develop or build up a lot of liquidity while we're young. And, in the future, going forward, we do want to have a more passive income coming from our practice and build a practice that's more sustainable, not just based solely on, our own individual efforts. But while we're young, while we have the energy, we had no kids. We're actually expecting our first baby.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you. So
When
we're
is the
super
due date?
excited about that. July. And so that's one
Oh,
of the
nice.
big reasons why Danielle's looking to start, developing
Pacifying.
a more sustainable practice. But up until then, there's no point from where we saw it to develop that. We wanted to maximize our cash flow from the practice.
So I have this annoyance with the low overhead crowd, and you guys are one of those people that advocate that model. And my beef with it has always been the lack of sustainability.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so you agree with that?
Oh yeah, I do agree with it. But I think that what I really
get what
like
you're saying. For your time in your life, it was
right,
necessary.
exactly, yeah.
So continue what you're going to say. I'm sorry.
So I think that, a lot of people listening to this are young dentists, and if they are in a kind of similar phase in life like we were, I think a lot of people are in that phase, and it can really be some life-changing things that you do if you can have a really low overhead practice and really maximize the cash flow for, say, 3 to 5 years. You're really setting yourself up for a lot of future success and a lot of future flexibility.
It's funny how we look at that so differently. So I look at this, right? We're talking early career, right?
Right.
Because usually early doctor careers, your personal expenses are a lot lower.
Right.
You don't have kids.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys have nice cars?
No, I drive a 2012 Honda Civic.
Yeah. I drive a Kia, and so you typically have low expenses in your personal life. And so how you handle your career in that early period I think we both agree, you can financially, the way I look at it is the way I did it, different than you guys, is I aggressively grew my practice, sacrificing income now for future income so that that large income is sustainable, as opposed to having a large income early with a lot of effort and then having to taper it off when I've paid my student loans or whatever I've tried to accomplish with that large income. Mm-hmm. So I think we've both recognized the opportunity of early career energy and low personal expenses, and we both tackled it in two completely different ways. And I think that just goes to the stylistic preferences. You guys wanted to get rid of that debt, and so you did. Good for you.
Yeah, I think you summed it up perfectly.
So do you actually disagree with anything? Because I feel like I was expecting more. I agree with you that it seems like we're agreeing on more than I was expecting.
Yeah, no, I think that I still do disagree a little bit on the hygiene heavy practice.
Yes.
I think.
All right.
I just really, and I understand what you're saying, and I think it's right for the right person. But even as we grow our practice and try to make it more sustainable, we do plan on still trying to keep that overhead down, nowhere close to the 35% where it's been at for the past 2 years. But having a lower overhead is our goal, because it feels more comfortable. It feels safer. When you have a time like this, it feels a whole lot better. And I think probably it's just a personal insecurity and bias that we have towards it, but it just feels a lot safer, and feels like you're able to take home more with less income coming in.
So describe the hygiene heavy practice to me. What do you think of when you say hygiene heavy practice?
Oh, I think of one doctor checking 3 hygienists.
Okay.
And I think that, the time that it takes that doctor to check 3 hygienists, I think that I think it's fair to say that if you have 3 hygiene checks an hour, you're going to spend almost a third of your day between taking off your gloves and walking to the room and talking to the patient. And check, you're going to spend a third of your time every single day. So a third of your working hours are going to be spent checking hygiene, and that's a lot of time.
So we, as a shared practices, we have some uniformity in our recommendations on the coaching side. So we don't ever 3 hygiene for one dentist is no man's land. So we try to only have that period in, about to onboard an associate times. So we actually 2-to-1 is the ratio that we like.
Okay.
So
I'll say I thought for some reason I had it in my mind that y'all like more, so that makes sense.
I personally, so I've had periods in my practice where I didn't have. So actually, 2 of my associates, my current and my former associate, were your classmates, and so them both. And there was a period in between them where I practiced by myself, where I had to check for 4 hygienists.
Oh wow.
So right, I've done it. I've
Yeah.
checked for 3 by myself. I've checked for 1 by myself, 2 and 4. I've kind of done the whole thing, and yeah, I can attest that my best results, case acceptance, diagnosis, everything is for 2.
Yeah.
That is the best ratio in my mind. And so you try to grow in that type of proportion with a few awkward periods in between. So I personally don't advocate for right. So if I have 4 hygienists, I need 2 doctors. That's kind of the simple math behind it.
Yeah.
So, but I agree with you. I 100% agree that the 3 hygiene for 1 doctor, especially if you don't have expanded function assistants, is very, very tough to me. Usually when I look at one of those practices, I'll see a very low diagnosis, very low doctor production, because they're just so busy checking hygiene. You are 100% spot on that point.
Yeah, and I think that it sounds like we again agree on a lot more than we realize.
So, but I do want to talk about the aversion to the larger practice. It seems like you have this, and that could be a stylistic thing. Where it's the overhead of the practice scares you.
I think that we don't have an aversion to a larger collections practice. We have an aversion to a larger expenses practice. So, our kind of dream would be to have a second dentist in there with Danielle, and they both kind of work a split schedule, so they're not there on a lot of the same days.
Okay.
And I think that we could easily get up to well over 3 million with 2 dentists, working split schedule, maybe 3 days a week. And I think that's doable. And so that's kind of what we're working towards. And I think you could do that while still keeping a really low overhead, not 35%, but definitely below 50, I think. And so that's what we're working towards. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. This is the discussion we need to have. So 3 million is the number.
I think that'd be a good number. Yeah.
Cool. And how many hygienists are on the team?
I haven't thought that far ahead. I think that over the years, it'll grow from necessity of just having all the hygiene patients in there. But yeah, I'd say, let's see, say 2 to 3.
2 to 3.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there's this, and this is the concept I was trying to write about in that post. So Rohit is the first one, that the CEO of Practice by Numbers. He's the one that got me onto this idea. It's of the idea of terminal velocity. And your patient flow dictates your terminal velocity, or how large your practice can currently grow, more than anything else. Because ultimately, if you have this very stable 100 new patients a month coming in, right now, I mean, am I guessing that your practice needs to grow a little bit more than 2 times to get to 3 million?
She was on track to do, 2 million this year.
Solo,
yeah, with one hygienist. Yeah.
Damn.
And that's from just a ton of new patients, right? I mean, she's getting over 100 new patients a month. And when you get that many new patients, those patients just need so much dentistry, or maybe it's just the area we're in. I don't know, but they just need a lot of dentistry.
So I'm looking at this practice, and I guess in my mind, I just am wondering why not. Right, I agree with what you're saying. With 2 hygienists, an associate that's less productive than she is, she takes a few days off. Maybe you're at 3 hygienists and you're doing close to 3 million. I can kind of see it.
Yeah.
I still think it might need more hygiene than you think, but I can kind of see it.
I think the associate, our goal would eventually be to have a partner too, to have someone that would have skin in the game, that would be there long term. we spent a long time looking for the dentist that's starting there. And obviously, it's our first associate, and we don't know what we're doing, but we do feel really good about it. And that's actually our eventual goal is, like I said, split schedule, eventual partner, and 3 million.
How many ops do you have?
How many ops? Let's see, 8 ops.
Okay. What are you guys going to do extended hours on those 3 days split schedules or split schedules 3 days? What does that mean? Like,
Well, we
you
haven't
guys open
figured that out
Saturday
yet.
or?
We haven't figured it out yet. We're, initially it's not going to be a split schedule, because Danielle wants to be there with the
Associate.
dentist that's starting out, and so that
Okay.
way, everyone can get on the same page and make it a good transition. So we have to figure out what the schedule would look like. I don't know yet.
So it seems like your path to a number greater than 3 is definitely available. You have right? Your new patient flow is ultimately the driver of how large your practice can grow.
Right.
Your terminal velocity is much higher with great new patient flow if you can retain them. And that's
Right.
where the hygiene comes in. Hygiene is patient retention. And so if you're saying 3 hygienists is where we're going to max out at, then eventually you're going to have 100 new patients in, 100 patients out a month. 100 new patients in, 100 existing patients out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you're probably right there. And honestly, that's something that we haven't gotten that far to. We're so used to running a startup based practice that we don't have a lot of, I'll be honest, we don't have a lot of knowledge and thoughts on running a more mature practice. And that's where, you have, like you said, you've looked at all these practices, like this is like your expertise. And so, that's probably something that we need a lot of help on, to be honest.
Yeah, I guess that's for me, that's like the hygiene. It seems like the startup period, of course, is not hygiene heavy, right?
Mm-hmm.
The $100 prophy isn't what you need. You need the $2,000 endo buildup and crown,
Right.
And I get you guys on that. It's just the sustainability of the practice long term, especially if you want associates, is so heavily based in that existing patient recur pool, much more than I think people realize.
Yeah, and I think another thing is we're not looking to stop at 100 new patients a month. We can increase that. So we spend less than $1,000 a month advertising simply because Danielle doesn't have the capacity to see more patients. I think she should get way more new patients than she's getting right now if we actually spent money on advertising. And so that's what we're planning on doing, is to ramp up the new patients here as we add capacity. And that's how we're planning on getting that growth from the
So
2 to 3
your
million dollar
growth
mark.
is very new patient oriented.
Exactly. And that's what I guess that's what I'm trying to say is I think that new patient oriented growth is much faster than hygiene growth. It's,
Yeah.
you can get from point A to point B much, much faster. And so if you we put all our focuses on the new patient growth as opposed to hygiene growth. And eventually we'll need to put our focus on hygiene growth for sure.
I guess the point I've been trying to make is it's not like I have so Matt's wife is a life coach, and the thing she always says is it's not an either or, it can be a both and. So it's this idea that like you're kind of like it's either new patients or hygiene. But
yeah, you're right.
It's both. Like
Yeah.
I'm not disagreeing with you on the new patients is rapid growth. I'm 100% with you on that concept. I just would like to I guess my point to the whole thing is you guys are leaving a big opportunity on the table by not exploring both simultaneously. It's not like, right, you're investing $1,000 a month in marketing currently. It's not requiring a lot of effort to get those 100 new patients a month.
No, that's all from her online presence and her 300 5-star Google reviews. That's where they all come from. And her sign on, she's got a massive sign on the busiest road.
Yeah. So like that's passive.
Yeah.
So like
for sure.
you can also have energy to, invest in your practice long term. So I guess that's sort of where I'm coming from is I guess, and I hate to keep going in circles, but you're about to onboard this associate.
Right.
And I guess from my perspective, they're both sharing one hygienist and all the new patients. And I get what you're saying. Oh, we can just get more new patients. And you live in a world where you have a lot of new patients. I'm looking at it from perspective of at this point she could have had 2 full hygienists to check, and then they could each check one. That would make the onboarding of the associate a lot smoother.
You're absolutely right, and we've been looking for another hygienist for a few months now, and we need another hygienist. And it would be, like you said, easier to bring on another dentist if we had another hygienist. The a few good things that we have going for us is Danielle's going to be cutting back. Having
Yeah.
getting ready to have a baby, being pregnant, and all that, and so that will add. Take away from what she's doing and give to another dentist. And so I think that's going to be helpful. And, we need that second hygienist, and we're adding the second hygienist. We probably would have already had one by now if all this wouldn't happen. We were actively interviewing.
So now here's the question I have for you. I think this is, what about 5 million? Is that a number you don't want to get to?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, why stop growing, right? So yeah.
It just, I mean, it seems so contradictory to me when you're like, oh yeah, of course, I'll take 5 million, but not too many hygienists or not too large of a team, because you can't have one without the other. Like you need, like you're like, I want a high collections, but not high overhead. But I mean, I agree that you don't want a high overhead like out of control, but you need to increase one to get the other. You need to get the capacity to continue to collect a lot. So I guess that's to me where I feel like, maybe you can clarify this for me. I just feel like there's inconsistencies in that in those statements.
I think that we have just been focusing on one step at a time. And our initial step was, okay, let's get the practice open and running and successful. We did that. Okay, let's grow to needing a second doctor. We've done that. And then now we're trying to grow to, where we have 2 full-time doctors. And where does it look like after that? Does it look like, like you said, it's not a either or. It's, we can do both. We should be doing both of trying to grow our hygiene program and, increasing, new patient growth too. But like you're saying, we should be probably putting a lot more focus on our hygiene program. Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything that we disagree on that we need to hash out before we kind of wrap this up?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. This is not what I was expecting. I was expecting guns a-blazing here, and I'm getting a lot of. I think we're both on the same page on a lot of areas that we definitely are on the same page on. I do say though, for me as a project, right? I think I look at this and I've never had high new patient flow like you guys have.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why we like the startup versus acquisition. I hate to talk about startup versus acquisition.
No,
but
go for it.
One of the big reasons why we wanted to do a startup. Well, first of all, we both have the personality. We want to create and grow something ourselves. Second, we were able to position our practice exactly where we wanted it, and be in the location that needed the dentist the most, be in the most visible location possible. It's going to get the highest number of new patients. And so basically we set up our practice from the very beginning to get as many new patients as possible over and over and over again. And I mean, it's exceeded our expectations as far as how easy it's been to continue getting these new patients. But I think a big part of why we get so many is, from the very beginning, like from the moment we started talking about opening the startup practice, our one goal was to get as many new patients as possible. And so every decision we made when opening this place and when selecting a location and when everything we did was to get a lot of new patients. And so that's, where I think a lot of times, maybe not in year 1 or even year 2, but going forward in the future, a startup can have some advantages over an acquisition is you position yourself to grow faster because of the decisions you made at the beginning.
100%. And I think the thing about a startup is that's not everybody. That's kind of the thing I harp on.
Right.
Like you guys we're talking about the top, I don't even know, you want to call it 5% of startups in new patient flow, for how minimal effort you guys put into it. So I almost feel like it's not an appropriate, that's not the norm. You guys did everything way better than most.
So it's not the norm for private dentists, but I spend a ton of time. So I work pretty closely with the DSO where I traveled around and did training and went to a lot of their big meetings with all the corporate people and all that. And so I got to see inside of a lot of that stuff and also just study what other DSOs are doing. and man, these Heartland practices that are opening de novos, and then the one I was working for. So the one I was working for, we were getting like 150 new patients a month sometimes. It was a denture and implant practice, and we were not in a good location. Even they were getting 150 new patients a month. And these new Heartland offices that are opening, I mean, they're getting way over 100 new patients every month. I mean, they're opening around me. They'll have like 400 5-star reviews within 6 months of being open in some of these Heartland practices, and I think that's what I'm trying to bring is like, let's quit doing startups like a private dentist does them, and let's look at what the corporate dentists are doing to open these successful practices and copy what they're doing. And that's kind of the what I'm trying to bring is, it doesn't have to be done like it's always been done.
Yeah, and that's like, to me, if you were to say, okay, I can guarantee 100 new patients a month, and I'm not saying guarantee, but they're very high likelihood of 100 new patients a month without minimal marketing in a startup, then yeah, that makes a startup look significantly more attractive than a typical startup looks.
Mm-hmm. But you can't guarantee that, right?
No.
Yeah.
But
it's risky.
I mean, it is, but and just, I mean, obviously, right? Like the number of decisions that have to be made in a startup that I would consider minutia are,
yeah. Oh, it's a pain opening one. It really is. The second time we're like, oh man, we're gonna open the second startup. It's gonna be so easy because we know. And it was harder the second time. Like we had way more trouble the second time, just from a few things of bad luck, honestly. But yeah, it doesn't. I don't think it gets a lot easier.
It's just so not my style. I just like at the end of the day, like, right. I think I acknowledge that the high new patient flow, especially a larger practice. I feel like startups make a whole lot of sense if you're going to build a lot of ops. If you're going to build like a 4-op startup, that's where I have a hard time justifying, because it's like, why are we doing a 4-op startup? You're going to outgrow it really quickly, and you just wasted all this time and effort on this tiny practice. It's hard for me to get behind that, but somebody opening up like a 12-op or something that could become 12 ops or start with 8 and could expand more, open the building up or whatever, that I get. And especially the semi-rural areas where there's like not a practice, there's not many offices. Those are areas where I actually do really genuinely think a startup fits. But I think a lot of people open like a 4 or 5-op practice in the middle of a metro area,
right,
in a semi not visible location. And that's the majority of startups I hear about. Like, it's tucked in the back of a shopping center next to the grocery store.
Terrible.
Like,
you should never do that.
But that's, if you look at them, that's the majority of startups.
Yes. You're right. And so that's what I'm saying is that's the majority of private dentists opening startups. Let's look at what these really successful corporate offices are opening startups. Let's look at what they're doing.
How many ops are they opening?
Oh, they're opening huge practices. I mean, the one that
like 14, 15 ops, 16 ops. That's what they're doing.
The DSO that I worked for, they opened a practice that I went and worked at, and it was 13 ops, and it was just me there for 2 years and 13 ops. And I was doing a lot out of those 13 ops myself, but they opened a 13 op practice, a 13 op startup. The rent was like, $13,000 a month or something. It was crazy.
That's George's kind of startup, Yeah. And right, if somebody could tell me, hey George, this location is going to get 100 plus new patients a month, and I didn't have to be the dentist there, and all I got to do was tweak with hygiene and how fast we're opening up capacity and reappoint. Oh man, that would be fun, because you can very quickly watch your practice grow, and it can reach its it can reach 3 million a lot faster than, I feel like, I feel like for an acquisition, the amount of growth that we've had, is, I think, really impressive. But I also feel like the startup, if with that 150 new patients a month, you can do a lot. And
sure.
I think that's.
And I think you also did a lot of demographic search when selecting your acquisition, right? And I don't think a lot of people don't do that. And so you've been able to grow a lot.
The most visible location I could.
Yeah. And that's why you've been able to. I mean, that's one of the reasons, obviously, because you are have a unique mind with all this stuff. But that's one of the reasons why you've been able to grow it so much, is because you made those good decisions from the beginning.
And so for me, I kind of had a turning point in my practice where I realized that new patient flow was my biggest problem. Initially, I didn't want to. I wanted everything. I think in general, I judged dentists who sit there with their practices and say, all I need is more new patients. And so it kind of put this block on me where I couldn't look at my practice objectively and identify that I, in fact, had a new patient problem. The month before I bought my practice, they saw 7 new patients.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, and so we're at about 60 to 70 a month now. So I do between 50 to
That's
70, depending on the number of
that's some
days.
serious growth, and I mean that's
Yeah.
impressive. Yeah,
So, I'm 18 months in,
yeah, that's amazing.
and, we have, but like when I look at it, I'm like, okay, well, I graduated, almost 2 years ago. So my timeline to a startup is 2.5 years out of school before I can open, is most likely my timeline.
You're
Because I
right.
have to work for a year, then I have to 18 months of the whole picking a location, construction, lease,
Mhm.
arguing with architects, the whole thing. And so I'm looking at it like I'm still not even at the point where my startup would have been opened.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And a startup from a pure like what's the best thing to do, like it's probably not a startup, especially if like you said, you're wanting to own as quickly as you can after graduating. It's probably not a startup. But if you have the personality and the ability to, like you said, go all in on marketing and make these decisions from the beginning, I do think you can exponentially grow a practice if it's your personality and if it fits what you want to do and you make the right decisions. I think it's a good alternative option, and it also lets you be able to be more flexible. So say, you can pick a certain metro area, and I can pretty much any metro area, I can find a great place to do a startup, as long as it's not one of the, super popular places that every single young dentist is moving to in the country. But if you go to a metro in like the middle of the country, like there's always going to be a good place for a startup pretty much.
For sure. And I think for me, my beef with startups is how many. I get this email all the time, and at this point, it just annoys me. They say, I want to live in this metro area where I want to live, and it's usually Phoenix or one of these places. And I've looked for a practice, and I can't find one, so I'm just going to start a practice that's very similar to the type of practice I was just looking for. And then you're like, I get the email all the time, and I just don't feel like that's an indication for a startup. Failed acquisition attempt
Right.
is not an
Absolutely not.
acquisition. That is
Absolutely
not
not.
a indication. That just means get better at trying to buy a practice.
Yeah.
And
They
I'm
haven't
sorry
looked
if
hard
that's
enough.
rude. Yeah, like look harder, try harder, like.
Yes.
And I'll get two different buyers in the same market. One will say there's no practices, the other one will send me three.
Yeah.
And it's like come on, man, like they're out there, and that drives me nuts. But when I hear somebody like, oh, I want to own a group practice, and I want to build something that's bigger than anything I could buy for cheaper, and get really high new patient flow and grow it with my culture and my way, and like those are all indications of a startup. Like for me, if I'm doing a startup, it's definitely having at least 10 ops. I know Scott Luna has the whole like don't build more than 7, because statistically speaking, your practice won't reach the size that can fill 7 ops with the efficient scheduling that they do. I personally really enjoy the flexibility of the operatories that I have 8 and we're starting to run out.
Yeah.
So I genuinely feel the value of a lot of operatories.
Yeah, and I think if it's the right person, me for instance, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to have a denture and implant practice. I should have never done an acquisition with the goal of having a denture and implant practice. Or like I said, if you want to build a big practice, there's certain indications for a startup, but like you said, it's not if you can't find a practice to buy. That's not why you do a startup, and I think that's super important to probably tell everyone listening to this podcast is don't do a startup because you can't find an acquisition.
No, and the other thing is don't do a startup if you're not going to invest heavily in marketing.
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing that I want to take away, because every time we've had a successful startup on Practice Underwater, it's they've doubled, tripled down on marketing, and that takes doing a startup takes guts, and some people without guts do them, and then they get timid about
Yeah.
investing in marketing, and that's just not the way to do this.
Yeah,
You can't do something risky and then not want to be risky.
Yeah, you got to look at it like a bill, not like I got to pay. Like it's a bill. Like you have to pay that money every single month. And I mean, it needs to be as important as your rent, making that rent payment. Like you got to do it. I know we've been going a long time, but the marketing thing is one of the biggest things. Is like a lot of these startups will be like, oh, what marketing company should I hire to do my startup? What do you mean, what marketing company? You can't hire a marketing company to do like the most important thing you're going to do when you open a startup is your marketing. You can't hire that out. You're not going to be. I mean, I don't know. I know that there's people that will
elaborate on that point.
So when you hire out your marketing, you're paying so much. You only have so much that you can pay as a startup for marketing. And if a lot of these marketing companies, you're paying so much for the website, and you're paying so much for the monthly service on the website and their bullshit SEO stuff.
Thank you.
And then your
Are you
management
on? Are you on
fees.
both SEO page with
Oh,
me?
oh yeah. The SEO is like, I mean, it doesn't exist. Like, why are
Thank
we
you.
paying for SEO? It's a joke.
Oh my gosh. We have
Yeah.
to talk about that in a second. Matt's gonna pull his hair out.
Okay. And so, yeah, we got some good stuff. I know we've been going a long time, but this is good. So
No,
if you've
this is
got
good. Keep
time,
going. I got time. I'm under quarantine right now, so you're good.
okay, perfect. So, and you're paying all these fees to this marketing company, and no amount of money is actually going to your ads. And so these startups are like, okay, I opened a startup. I've got this marketing company. It's like, how much are you actually spending on
ads?
actual ads? And so, trying to outsource your marketing to me would be like trying to outsource your like fillings and crowns and extractions and root canal. Like, I want to do a startup, but I'm gonna refer out every filling and crown. And like, I'm only gonna do cleanings. Like,
So we've actually, for our clients, we actually work with like this web company that is super cheap management fees for that purpose. We advocate that pay as, because realistically, if I tell my client to make their own website or whatever, it's like, that's not. I mean, I would never do that. So I would never tell somebody to do that. So we have this company that's like super cheap management fees compared to the industry, and they do a lot of stuff for you, but that SEO thing, that grinds my gears.
It's a joke, because all you got to do is get a bunch of Google reviews and add a bunch of stuff to your Google My Business listing. And then, SEO, like, there's 3 things that appear on Google. You got first your Google ads, then you got your local map 3-pack, and then you got your SEO at the bottom. Why would you ever spend money to show up at the bottom of the page? That's crazy. People are spending more money to show up at the bottom of the page when you could just spend like $2 for a click and be at the very top of the page. I mean,
Matt, are you listening to this? Earth to Matt. That is, that has been like my harping point forever. Is I'm paying, so I still pay for SEO, but now I just pay whoever does it cheapest. Yeah. Because, like at this point, right, my marketing budget is, similar to your startup marketing budget. It's 10 to 15 a month, 10 to 15,000 a month. And yeah, I mean, I can throw some money in SEO and see what happens. It's diversification. Yeah. But I'm not throwing it with, I'm throwing this money in SEO and I'm going to rise to the top of the page because I hired the guy that has the voodoo magic that can get $500 a month worth of SEO spend.
And you're in an established practice that has a lot of money coming in. You have a lot of money to experiment with different marketing things. And so if you want to do money towards SEO, hey, go for it. But a startup shouldn't be spending $1,000 a month on someone doing SEO when they're probably not doing anything and laughing all the way to the bank taking their $1,000.
I mean, and they're like, what do you do? Well, we divide a bunch of different things. We'll do backlink profiling, and we'll look at your directories and make sure everything's correct. This takes not that long, and you do it once, but somehow I'm paying monthly for this. I still pay for SEO, and they still give me the whole runaround. But I am not. Does not work. I will just die on that stake because if it works, great. Right, I'll be wrong and I'll get more new patients, but it does not justify what they cost for it. It does not do anything, and at this point, you're right. It goes pay per click. Number 1, 2 is Google reviews, and I actually really believe in Google My Business optimized listings. Yes. So we're both on that same page.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like posting photos, the whole thing on there.
Absolutely.
That's
the new SEO is Google My Business.
Google My Business, 100%. The Swell, are you on Team Swell?
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Cool. I love Swell.
Yeah. Best thing. I think people hear our ads and hear how much we rave about them. And they're like, this can't be real. This, and I've been meaning to post them because I get clients, I make them sign up for it. And they're like, oh man, more reviews in the last 3 days than I've had in the last 3 months. Like twice I got that text last week. Yeah. And I was like, that's real. That's Swell. And I mean, the ads, Richard does the ads well, and people post on Facebook. I've seen it, the shared practice talking about Swell. Does it really work that well? I'm a skeptical. Why are you skeptical? It's a very cheap Google review generated. It's the cheapest one.
Exactly.
What are we skeptical about? Just try the cheapest offering of that product that everyone should have. It's the best form of marketing you'll ever do.
It's not like y'all are pushing a bunch of different companies. That's the only company you even talk about is Swell. So it's
that maybe practice my numbers.
Good. Yeah,
the two. We don't push companies we don't just love. So yeah, I can't understand the skepticism behind our Swell pushing. I mean, I was pushing them for a year before they even paid us. So, and they don't even pay us that much. I mean, it's just we just like the company. Gosh.
Yeah, because it works. It does.
It works so well.
And we get a lot of reviews. I mean, Danielle's got almost 300 now.
Yeah, I mean, I passed 350. So it works. I mean, gosh. Anyway, um, but yeah, I think going back to the marketing thing, like the ad spend is super important in a
Mhm.
startup. If you're going to do a startup, you are acknowledging that you are opening a practice for the same cost of acquiring one with no patients.
Yeah,
So it is imperative that you take the equal risk of
yeah,
financially getting patients. Like, I don't
absolutely.
know why that doesn't register with people. They're like, oh, they'll come. Like, from where?
Yeah, where are they going to come from? Yeah, it's like you put your startup back like tucked back by a grocery store, like you said, and then you're too scared to
Yeah.
spend on marketing, and then you've hired out all your marketing to another company, and then you're like, okay, where are the new patients? Well, they're never going to come because no one like you have to drive traffic to your website or to see your phone number to call you to even know you exist. It's like if no one knows you
Yeah.
exist, no one's going to call.
And there's this thing in marketing that people I've learned firsthand, momentum is huge.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you market the same message over and over and over again to your community, and it will start to multiply on itself. And that $5,000 a month you're spending month one, month 18, you spend $5,000. It goes much further because your community is definitely hearing your message. They drive by your practice. Oh, I got their mailer. I know where they are. And then when they need you, you're there. So
Exactly.
direct mail is kind of like this thing that you just keep doing it forever. I mean, at least in my mind,
Mm-hmm.
so long as you have the capacity for it, because it just will continue to repay itself over and over and over again in your community. You're just reminding your community of where you're at and what you do, and eventually they'll come.
Yeah, and it
And
all
so,
builds on itself too, you know? It's like
yeah,
you said, it's like you drive by the place, they've seen the sign 100 times, then they get a mailer, and then this is a big thing about Facebook ads. Some people that Facebook ads don't work. Like, yeah, they don't work if you like tell people to message your Facebook page. Like even messaging someone from Facebook trying to like ask about how much it costs to get their tooth pulled is probably not gonna be like a really profitable patient for you. It's like, but Facebook is like I mean, like I get a ton of new patients from Facebook for my denture and implant startup. And what we do is we just hammer the same message over and over and over again. And we spend a lot of money on Facebook marketing compared to, you know, what most people are spending. And no, we don't get direct patients from Facebook to say, hey, I just messaged you from Facebook and I'm scheduling. But so many people come in saying like, oh yeah, I saw you on Facebook. And it's like, yeah, we just hammer the same ad over and over again. It's like a digital billboard, and they get used to your message, and eventually they take action.
so okay, so you're using Facebook as brand awareness.
Yeah, yeah, and
Cool.
really just hammering the same message. Just like I literally just put out, you know, uh, implant teeth dentures, you know, free consultation call now, and it'll just be the same thing with like a picture of like dentures or a picture of like some implants or whatever. It's like the most basic ad ever, but it just works. So like it shouldn't work, but
But
it
it
does.
does.
Yeah.
So here's an idea. We're in the middle of COVID-19,
Mm,
and I've been trying to brainstorm on how we can market specifically for emergencies. Because right now a lot of dentists are closed,
mhm.
and I want to try to capitalize on this emergency market. So, do you have any ideas for me?
Google Ads for sure.
Google
Um,
Ads. Okay.
yeah, I would go all in on Google Ads for emergencies. And what you can do is like on your actual ad, just say, you know, open
Open
now,
during
same day
COVID-19.
appointments, you know, whatever. And yeah, I think you get a ton of emergency patients doing that. And then also, you know, I don't know about doing it on Facebook because I think what you'll get, I think you might get like some pushback. You're like, oh, look at this jerk dentist trying to make money while everyone's quarantined in their office. I wouldn't do it. I would be hesitant to do a bunch of Facebook ads saying
Really?
you're open now. Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say open now. I would say like during this crisis, we need to keep people out of the ER, and so we are seeing emergency patients in our practice. Share this post so that people know that if they need emergency, don't go to the hospital. They come to us.
I think I think it's a good idea, but I would be a little scared. I guess I'm probably hesitant because there's a dentist in Memphis that was doing it, but they were saying, what were they saying? It was like it actually got posted on Dental Hack. There was a dentist that's in Memphis, and they said like now is a great time to get your cleaning done. Come in
Oh, see, that's totally.
30% off your copay too. They're advertising this on Facebook.
They're advertising insurance fraud on
Yeah.
Facebook.
And they made it on the news and on the
Oh
Memphis
man.
News, and so I guess I'm probably sensitive. Like I don't want that happening to me. So, but I think it'd probably be, you know, as long as you made it tasteful and we're like, hey, we don't want people going to the emergency room. We're still seeing emergency patients.
Yeah. Like
If you
we are
have an
seeing
emergency,
emergency patients. If you're
yeah,
having an emergency, call us. Do not go to the ER.
yeah, don't
I feel
advertise
like
meetings.
no, 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 yeah, no, no. It would any public advertising is about emergencies right now for
Yeah,
sure because
yeah,
that's all
definitely.
we are able to do from our
Hmm.
governor.
No.
Um, yeah. So
So are you staying open right now?
no, we're currently closed, but we're trying to kind of be half if we can get enough emergencies to keep some people there
Hmm.
because I mean, right? I don't want this to get political,
Yeah.
and right, but yeah, let's just get off air and we'll talk
Yeah,
because
that's
I
fine.
don't want to. We did COVID content this week, and
Yeah, I'm so people
I
are
want to
probably so
keep the
tired of
COVID.
hearing that stuff.
Yeah, I don't want to get into COVID right now.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about it off air.
Okay.
Do you have anything else for me, Austin?
No, I don't think so. This is a great conversation. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't think it's funny. I think the people that are expecting us to argue George versus the anti-George and the whole thing are going to be disappointed with how much we agreed on. And I'm so happy that we threw Matt's SEO crap under the bus.
That was good
Oh
stuff.
my goodness. He is so wrong on that. And he like
That's a good.
Matt, he's very I call him political. He calls himself not political. I use that as an insult to people because I'm like not very political. And and so I'm like, you're just so like, irrationally into the idea of SEO that like it doesn't make sense to me. So I call it political. But it's he's just so on the SEO thing. And so I'm excited to have him hear this and maybe we'll talk about it in the outro. So
He's going to change
um,
his mind eventually.
yeah, right. But I'm actually really happy that I think we offered a clarity on the startup thing.
Yeah, I think so.
Because
This is really good.
I think there was some solid startup content in here coming from me, especially, where I acknowledge a few areas. And then I think you acknowledged that a lot of ways that it's currently being done are just wrong too.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I think we agree on, I mean, I don't think we disagreed on anything really.
No, not at all. I think what we might have disagreed on is like I will admit that you're right and I was wrong on hygiene stuff is like what we
Yeah,
disagreed
but
on. I was probably wrong about.
which is fine. We move on, but yeah, it's cool. I appreciate you coming on, Austin. And
Yeah, I
I
appreciate
think
you having me on. It was fun.
I want to acknowledge you though, because I think if somebody takes one thing away from you, success favors the bold.
Yeah.
And like every single time, how is the rent at Danielle's practice expensive?
No, it's not bad. It's like 5,000 a month.
Okay, but like compared to other locations that you guys were looking at
Oh
to get
yeah,
that visibility, much more expensive, correct?
Yeah, for sure.
So bold decisions that you guys made, doing a startup, putting it in an area with high rent to get the maximum visibility, and expensive investing in marketing.
Yeah, yeah. And don't settle on a location. I mean, we everything was going against us to get the location we got. It was like everyone told us not to, and we just kept pushing because I knew it was the right location. It's like, yeah, we paid more. Yeah, we have a bad landlord, but it's in the right place. And it's like the landlord literally let us put up the biggest sign we could possibly get on there. There's so many things that we had to be there, and it's like you need to know the location you need to be in and get there, and don't settle on some location just because you want to open a practice.
So don't settle. Perfect. Because a lot of people do a startup as a settling.
Right. Yes.
But I think either way, you don't settle.
No.
Either in an acquisition or a startup. You are relentlessly pursuing the best thing.
Yeah, because you're tying yourself down to either way, acquisition or startup. You're tying yourself down to something for at least 3 to 5 years at a minimum. And if you tie yourself down to something terrible, you're gonna have a bad 3 to 5 years before you can even think about getting out of it.
Yeah, it's like, it's just that whole idea of, front loading where you put a lot of work on the front end to have an easier time on the back end, and, you guys, again, I like the boldness. I think that's something that every time I talk to you, I think we both have that ability to make bold decisions with ease, or at least we do them. I don't know. They're not always easy for me.
Not always easy.
Yeah.
Not always easy. I mean, we've had some sleepless nights, 100%.
Yeah. So I think I also want to say that too, because people also think that we are this breed of people that is just very like risk doesn't bother us. We're totally unaffected by it. I mean, I feel like I almost do this to myself sometimes. So I'm like, gosh, I'm so stressed, and it's like all my fault because I'm so like irrationally aggressive that and so it's like your head makes your heart hurt sometimes, where you're like, my stomach can't handle what my head wants to do, but I do it anyway.
Embrace the discomfort, it's like it's never going to not be uncomfortable. I mean, of course, like I just opened a startup 2 months ago and I'm shut down indefinitely. Like Am I uncomfortable? Yeah, of course I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah, what is it comfortable about that?
It's part of it, though. You have to accept that. You know, that's part of it.
Yeah, the whole thing is just so. Anyway, so I just the boldness that you guys have for me stands out, and your ability to track new patients and your ability to think differently about startups. So kudos to you, man. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Thanks, Austin.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Practice Underwater. We'll see you guys next week.
If you're interested in one-on-one coaching with either Dr. George Hariri or Dr. Matt Garino, our contact emails are in the show notes.
And if you're interested in being on Practice Underwater as a guest, where we could look at your practice anonymously, you can go ahead and contact the email in the show notes and follow those directions to get on the show. Thanks, and we'll see you guys next week on Practice Underwater.